And we're back. I'm losing my book. Alright. On the topic of marginalization and autism in particular, I wanted to discuss with you guys, again, some arguments as to why I feel that ASL is a language, aside from all of the research that's been done on it. I had one, actually it was a deaf person who was telling me, he was like, deaf people shouldn't learn ASL, they should only learn English, and ASL isn't even really a language, and blah, 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 blah. So I asked him why he thought that, and he was like, well, ASL doesn't have the same words that English has sometimes. And I was like, oh, okay, well let me give you an example from another language compared to English, and let's see if English is really a language by your own standard, okay? And so I gave him an example from the Bible. And I understand I did not grow up a Christian, I grew up an atheist, and I didn't become a Christian until I was 19 by deaf people. And so I'd be reading the Bible, and I'm sorry if this sounds heretical to you guys who are Christians. I am a Christian now, so I guess I can do this, right? I can make fun of Christians. Anyway, I was reading the Bible one time, and there's this verse in John 21, where Jesus and Peter are talking back and forth. And it didn't make sense to me in English. I'm reading this, and I'm like, is Jesus on crack? Like, what's going on? Because it says, Jesus said to Simon Peter, Simon, son of John, do you truly love me more than these? Yes, Lord, he said. You know that I love you. So I'm like, all right, that's cool. Jesus said, feed my lambs. Again, Jesus said, Simon, son of John, do you truly love me? He answered, yes, Lord, you know that I love you. Jesus said, take care of my sheep. I'm like, Jesus, really? You just asked that question? For real? Okay. The third time he said to him, Simon, son of John, do you love me? By this point, I'm starting to wonder if Jesus is deaf. I'm just not sure. You know, in the English, why is he asking him this same question 3 times? And there's a lot of religious significance behind all of this and stuff too, but Peter was hurt because Jesus asked him the 3rd time, do you love me? He said, Lord, you know all things, you know that I love you. So I'm like, why does Jesus keep asking me this question over and over again? It wasn't until I went to Mexico and I started reading the Bible in Spanish that I finally realized they're not saying the same thing. So those of you guys who are Spanish speakers, I'll just read a little bit of that too. Simón, hijo de Juan, ¿me amas más que estos? Sí, Señor, tú sabes que te quiero, contestó Pedro. So, in Spanish, they're saying, ¿me amas? And his answer is, te quiero, which are 2 different kinds of love. And then when you look at it in the Greek, there's even more different kinds of love. There's 4 different kinds of love. And basically what it comes down to, if you were to look at the Greek, is Jesus is asking Peter, hey, do you agape love me? A-G-A-P-E. Which is a word that means in a deep, godlike, I don't know how to even describe it very well because I don't speak Greek, but in a very sincere, deep way. And Peter's like, yeah, I love you like a bra. You know, I mean, he's using phila. If you've ever heard, obviously, of the city of Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love, phila, or phileo, means brotherly type love, right? So they're not saying the same thing to each other. And so I asked this deaf person, I was like, does that mean that English isn't really a language? You know, English is insufficient in some ways. Every language is insufficient in some ways. That doesn't mean it's not a language, in my personal, not so humble opinion. The last example of why ASL, well, I don't know if it's an example of why ASL is a language, but it's pretty funny, is I have had more than one person on an occasion tell me that they think that ASL is not a language because even gorillas can learn it. And so my response to them is always, funny, a gorilla knows sign language, but you don't. What does that say about you? Something to think about. Anyway, not that I have a prejudice there, obviously I do. Let's see, so going on, I wanted to also talk to you guys about something that the book discusses, which is the idea of benefactors. And if you're looking at your PowerPoints, this starts on slide 15. Benefactors, bene, B-E-N-E, meaning good, you would think that a benefactor would be a good thing, right? They are trying to do good. However, in the process of doing good, it goes to that thing that I was talking about in a previous video of going overboard, going too far to the opposite extent, where I want to help those deaf people deaf people don't need your help, man. They can request your help. Deaf person can just as easily go to the doctor and write back and forth with the doctor if they really wanted to, or gesture and point at things, or whatever they wanted to do. You are a convenience. You are an accommodation. That's what you are. And, you know, you shouldn't ever think of yourself. You're helping that hearing person understand that deaf person just as much as you're helping that deaf person understand that hearing person. And that's really the way that we should be looking at this. I'm not helping. I am providing a service. You know, your server isn't helping you by bringing you food because you can't cook. Well, maybe in some cases that's true. I don't know. Some of you may not be able to cook, and I'm not trying to offend you. But you kind of get the point. It's a service industry. We provide a service. They can choose to or not choose to accept our service. Usually benefactors, the problem with a benefactor and viewing it as an oppressor is that usually they're not, because they are trying to do good. They are trying to do something that is nice. And so, let's see, a few notes that I had about that. Here's an example of Lael when I was first learning to sign. I was not used to the stares that you get. I mean, deaf people grow up with this stuff. I did not, and so it was odd to me when people would stare or make fun of my deaf friends. Ooh, it is very hard to get me angry. If you want to get me angry very fast, you make fun of someone. It makes me very, very angry. And I went ice skating. I'd only been learning sign language for a few months, and I went ice skating with a group of deaf people, and we were at the aerodrome, if you guys have been there. And so, now, first of all, Lael in ice doesn't work out well. I fall down a lot. And so, I'm trying to ice skate, trying being the key word there, and all of a sudden these boys, I notice, are circling around the rink, and they are making fun of my deaf friends. They're like, you know, makes me very angry. And so I was so angry, I decided I was going to chase after them, and I was going to be angry and yell at them. And so I started skating toward them, and I fell down because I can't skate. And then I remembered that it's a rink, that it's a ring, and that they were going to come back around. So I decided to wait for them instead, and that worked out a little better. Anyway, they came around, and when they got closer to me, I yelled at them. And I was like, "Hey, do you have a problem with deaf people?" And they kind of looked around, and they looked at themselves, and I was like, "Yes, you, come here!" So they did. I don't know why they listened to me. Anyway, they came over, and my deaf friends were standing there, and they were telling me, "Don't worry about it, we're so used to it, it's not a big deal," you know, and I was like, no, they are gonna apologize. And so I looked at them, these boys, and I was like, you need to apologize to them, that is inappropriate, blah, 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 blah. And so they're like, oh man, I'm sorry. And I was like, oh, no, 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 no. You're going to sign it to them, okay? So this is the sign for sorry, tell them you're sorry, you know, and so, oh, I'm sorry, you know. But, you know, I mean, over the course of time, I realized my deaf friends don't need a savior. My deaf friends don't need me to intervene for them. If it doesn't bother them, it shouldn't bother me. You know, and it's still, I won't lie, that's still hard for me. But it is something that I'm working on. And it's being too much of a benefactor. You know, I mean, deaf people, you need to give them the opportunity to stick up for themselves. How much better about themselves are they going to feel if they defend themselves for something? They don't need you sticking up for them all the time. It's really hard for me. Paternalism is something I see a lot in interpreters, where they're like, oh, sweetie, you shouldn't be dating him. You should just stay away from him because he is bad news. You know, and just topics like that. I mean, we're constantly giving them feedback on their lives. You know, nobody else is walking around with an interpreter that's giving them feedback. Let them make mistakes. Let them realize for themselves, or for that matter, let them do something that you think is a mistake and actually ends up working out really well. You don't know. You're not God, you know. A lot of religion in this discussion today. Anyway, but you're not God. You don't know. And so just try really hard not to be a benefactor, if at all possible. And we will move on to our next discussion in the next video.